Hey everyone, it's Bob. Welcome back to Elevate Your AI Cube. Today I'm excited to have Jack Houghton, co-founder and chief product officer at Mindset AI, join me for this episode. Jack and his team are doing amazing work in leveraging AI to transform learning and development and content management, all while keeping trust and responsibility at the forefront, of course. In our conversation, we explore how generative AI is reshaping user experiences, the challenges of ensuring accuracy and accountability, and the future potential of AI agents to enhance human capabilities. If you have not heard, AI agents and agentic workflows are very hot topics. This is a fascinating discussion on how AI can truly elevate both individuals and organizations. I learned a lot myself, and admittedly, Jack scared me a little bit. But nonetheless, I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Elevate Your AIQ. I'm your host, Bob Pulver. With me today is Jack Houghton from Mindset.ai. How are you today, Jack?
Doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you so much for taking some time. I'm really interested in some of the work that you're doing as a co-founder and chief product officer at Mindset AI. Tell me a little bit about the impetus for this and what led you to start this startup.
It's a really good question. I mean, originally we were in, old school, uncool AI, so machine learning. This is before, obviously, OpenAI and ChatGPT. We were building a platform which connected content and information to the right people at the right time using machine learning algorithms and tagging and all the things now that were quite obviously uncool. All looking back now seems so much less cool and exciting than where we're at today.
Yep.
But we kind of started with the fundamental question, which was, can technology adapt to people instead of people adapting to technology? So we kind of, as an organization, went, okay, if that question was to be true, what would have to happen? And that kind of set us up on that journey. So we'd need a database and a machine learning algorithm that could capture every interaction of people in the same way as a social media platform would work, to be able to make connections between different events and circumstance and people and things. And we need to build a technology architecture on top of that allowed the technology to move around and change. So not this rigid thing that could never change and adapt. Obviously, when OpenAI came about, and we obviously were at day one in implementing different models into the platform. That's ever been the journey ever since. So we're very much now still doing very similar stuff, but we work with learning and media industries typically at the moment.
Okay. So certainly I've been around a while. I saw that first wave. I was at IBM for a long time, working closely with IBM research to try to connect them to clients and let clients see what's coming next. And this predates a lot of even the machine learning and stuff we saw with eventually IBM Watson, but some of the expert knowledge systems, these unbelievably complicated sort of decision trees and things like that. And like you said, it was very rules based, very structured, very time consuming, and for an individual organization, you'd basically have to go in and do a pretty significant project to even make that work at a reasonable level. And in hindsight, seeing what some of the AI agents and some of the more recent advancements stemming from generative AI, I mean, it's really incredible, and it's what I think you and I have been hoping for all these years, right? That we'd get to that level of intelligence, customization, personalization, et cetera.
100%. I mean, I don't think many people in the world got the opportunity to foresee how fast things would grow and change, to be honest. I mean, it for the first time ever probably made enterprise content management sexy and cool and useful and important. But yeah, 100%. I mean, our team, the other members of the co-founding team, their last business was one of the literally market leading legal technology businesses in the enterprise content management space. And the sort of things we can do now would have only been dreamt of. But I mean, the teams, that platform, and that business was 13,500 global enterprise clients, and really interestingly, doing the same things today, but now with language models that make it, to be honest, 10 times faster, simpler, and easier.
I think more recently, what builds on top of even those innovations is the accuracy, right? Like if you're going to all of a sudden give everyone, because we saw this with enterprise search, right? Like you spend so much time searching for information as opposed to having it understand what you're looking for and being able to more quickly discover the right information that you're looking for. And so, as we've seen with a lot of the generative AI solutions, if it's not done properly, I mean, you're just going to continue to get, what they call hallucinations, and you have to be able to trust these systems, right? So the accuracy improvements, I know, as you said, you've been working with OpenAI. Some of the improvements with the newer models is pretty significant.
So obviously, when AI came out, I think the perception was that once AI, large language models, and in the form of a chatbot came out, I think people initially went, "This is a complete and finished product," and it wasn't. Just because we were getting value in some way, it wasn't. And I guess the fallacy that I guess people have been probably coming to grips, especially the people building in this space, and I guess it's a much slower learning curve for those that are purchasing, using, testing, is just because it seems good at search doesn't mean it is. It understands natural language and then can query. But actually, as a fundamental baseline, that the idea of obviously RAG has now become a major industry. Like RAG is now, a massive topic with many different versions and implementations and middleware products and all sorts of stuff there. And this assumption that RAG plus large language models equals finished product that can search, as you were saying, it is just a complete fallacy. It's so far from the truth to what is actually required to make something helpful versus give me an answer engine, essentially. Like, give me an answer engine that's a vague collection of important information that is somewhere in a knowledge base.
Right. So, I mean, I know you've been focusing on like learning and development and media, you said. I mean, certainly significant, content management systems and things like that. But for a lot of organizations, I mean, I imagine you would target like consulting companies, firms that are sort of based in, the collective intelligence and knowledge of a lot of, pretty smart people, a lot of client engagements or whatever. Is that a particular, target for you, or is that just drop in the bucket for compared to other use cases?
It's a great question. I guess, I mean, as an organization, don't want to play in, I guess, anywhere that places like people like Microsoft are playing right now.
Yeah.
They can go fill their boots over there.
Yep.
Very focused at the moment. I mean, ultimately where our mission is to make expert verified knowledge accessible instantly to at least 100 million people. And until we achieve that, then we're very happy and focused on where we're at. And I guess to answer your question really directly, that means we get to work with some of the biggest edtech, so educational technology providers, learning
Yep.
software, all the way to, I guess, school level and education level. Consultancy in the form of people who deliver e-learning and training online and information online. So often the people who are typically the ones that provide content and training to other organizations. So we get to work with that incredible market, which gives us a fantastic, I guess, oversight and vision on where the market is actually at.
Yeah.
Because each one of our customers also works with hundreds of other customers as well.
Right.
But I think the really biggest, I guess, the encapsulation of what people typically want to, I guess, implement is an AI coach, AI tutor. I guess what you probably call that. That's a major area of innovation, I guess, over the next probably like 12 to 18 to 24 months, I think, because what people think about as a AI coach or tutor scratches the very surface of what that could be.
No, that's awesome. I've had a lot of conversations of late here in the US with, educators and just that subject in general, just because there's so much inefficiency. Some of this ties to public sector more broadly, right? Even in government. I mean, it's like this comical, maze of clicks and loops trying to find, information when it seems like you could just ask a natural language question. And then to your point, if you knew enough about the types of things that I might be interested in, knew enough about me, you could sort of work backwards and, figure out the context, right, of what I'm looking for. And I would say, if you think about the scale at which, if you could save me 2 hours, think about those 100 million people and how much overall time you're saving in aggregate. It's pretty incredible opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, most of our, I guess, the use cases our customers work with us on is, you probably call it, so AI coaches, imagine the product. The use cases typically are launching an academy of some sorts that is driven by AI coaching and learning. Performance support is the other one. and search, I guess, with performance support. So turning their existing content, product information into a performance support tool in the flow of work for our customers. So they build agents on our platform, put them inside their platforms, or they have their own. They launch it via our web and mobile app or whatever, and then give it to employees, give it to their customers. They put it inside a Slack channel, for example, because we just put it in anywhere you want, so people can access information. I guess from an ROI perspective, though, it's an interesting one you're discussing, because I guess the easy story to tell us all is saving time. But I think organizations, buyers, CFOs, or whatever, whoever is the person pulling the full purse strings, hasn't got to grips on how we measure this thing yet, I don't think.
Agree. I think the problem, you can tell me if I'm off base, but I think you're kind of a straight shooter, and you will call out some of the nonsense that you see in the headlines and things like that, right? So I'm the same way. I feel like for 2023 and the first half of 2024, everything was around like an individual's productivity, right? And an organization is made up of teams and divisions and departments and things like that. So if you're not doing things to think about how you improve the end-to-end, experience, the metrics that matter, the ROI, like you were mentioning before, then what are you really doing? I mean, you can't just have one cog spinning at 10x and then everyone else is at 1x or 2x. I mean, things are going to break. So you've got to think more holistically about, the impact and the scale and what matters.
So there's a car company. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I should be able to, but they're a technology platform provider that helps organizations manage their payments, enterprise organizations. So they have actually a lot of the data on what types of purchases you're making. So if you're raising a proper commitment versus a credit card spend, tells people in terms of a signal where enterprise is spending. Is it team leaders purchasing 3 or 4 licenses to essentially a POC or a test, or are people committing to something for a long period of time? Now, that commitment curve is going up for most organizations as they've gone through pilots and the testing. But a lot of this is still in test phase for a lot of people. And I guess the challenge of justifying an ROI here, as you say, team-wide is really impactful. However, saying the idea of this sort of saving time thing, I'm always unconvinced by as a proposition, really, because unless you can articulate to a CFO, you can hire less people 3 years into the future, which is how that is saving time to save money. It's not saving any money if you're not hiring less people. Yeah. So the only way that ROI comes true is also on the, I guess, how many less people do I need to hire in a forward-looking financial model? It's a difficult thing to predict at the moment. So it's an interesting one, because I think typically most organizations try to grapple with this, how we're justifying our ROI and impact. But that's the journey of most AI providers, though, as you perfectly, I think, summed up, which is how do we move away from into increasingly more valuable tasks and more of those tasks for a person or team? Because suddenly you've now moved from a task that would take X amount of time and therefore this cost to something that would now take away 4 or 5 steps of that process, and therefore the value, you're actually moving up the value chain there quite quickly, and that's the race.
Right. I think you've also got, especially in the case of your customers, you're elevating their knowledge, right, and their ability to improve their own support of their clients or get their job done more effectively. It's not all about efficiency. It's about how do you make the organization more effective, and what do you do with the time that you've freed up? How are you sort of reinvesting that cost avoidance or that cost savings, moving people, freeing them up to work on other projects? I mean, maybe you avoid some of the anticipated hiring because you've got people already with the skills, and now they have a little bit more bandwidth to take on more work. They may not love that. Like, here I am thinking I learned all these tools and now I can work more efficiently and have this work-life balance, but now I'm going to get more work instead to fill up some of that time. But I mean, these are tough, situations that, leadership needs to navigate, but you've got to understand what the expectations are from employees and make sure you maintain that trust. I guess trust is a two-way street, right, between employees and employers. But yeah, I just think there's a lot of value that maybe people just aren't aren't tracking the right metrics to see it.
Yeah, the classic innovator's dilemma, which is
Yeah.
by the time you've justified and organised, it's probably a bit too late a lot of the time. Always be willing to rip up everything and just go for it. And the big tech companies have understood that really well. And in many ways, that's why there's a lot of noise around AI. Typically, big bets are being placed by big companies, publicly traded companies. So Wall Street suddenly wants to have a view on what's the expected returns of this X billion-dollar investment to, say, Meta or whatever it might be. And actually, we're just in the innovation stage. And that innovation stage means all the way down to measurement, as you say, how we measure impact and return. And therefore, there's just creates a lot of unnecessary noise around it. And actually, it's such a baby technology that has been around for 3 years or less, in terms of a widespread in the cultural zeitgeist kind of technology. But there's a lot of attention on it all the time because it's exciting or it feels scary or it's easy to get clicks by a newspaper or, if they put a headline saying something flashy.
Right.
But a lot of the time people just need to relax a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like some of it was sort of built up because 10 years ago, they were moving beyond, maybe it wasn't 10 years, but people think of automation as simply robotic process automation. And that's not true at all. We could do, more intelligent automation, many years ago, even with, machine learning based, predictive AI and some, back in that time frame. But I mean, I saw this when I left IBM and went to NBC Universal. I had to put together an automation strategy. And I mean, I remember very clearly there was a maturity curve that said you can start with robotic process automation, but then there's intelligent automation and even cognitive automation, which was trying to incorporate some of that, machine learning based AI. Still had rules, right? Still wasn't doing what an agentic workflow today would do, but it's not like this stuff didn't exist. Some of the things that we're seeing now, some of the headlines that we're seeing, and some of this wasn't, out of thin air. It was just some of it seemed like just a natural sort of evolution of we were talking about 10 years ago, but most people just weren't that far on the adoption curve at that time.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely the ability to use it has moved from organizations, typically operations or IT teams within a big company, to now the everyday builder. And therefore it can spread as an idea and as a concept as if it's a new thing. I mean, a lot of this is building on the frameworks that were provided by RPAs or whatever other systems came first. And everything else just kind of slotted on top of that.
So do you guys find that you're going in and just basically displacing people that have RPA that tried to find some, rough way to accomplish what you've given them a much better approach to do? I mean, are you displacing people that sort of went down that path already, saying like, yeah, that's like old school, or is it really sort of net new? These guys are just waking up, and it's sort of a fresh start at all this.
From an RPA perspective, we don't. That's not typically what we sell into, and we work with people on. I mean, the people who manage that in an organization is operations and IT.
Yeah.
Who manage that type of activity. In terms of AI agents, large language models, all they're doing is sitting across RPA processing.
Hey, it's Libby DeLucian. If you're sick of business advice that sounds cute but doesn't actually move the needle forward, this one's for you. The Libby DeLucian podcast is where we go one layer deep. No gurus, no glitter, just straight up unfiltered talk about scaling a business, running a household, and holding on to your sanity in the middle of the chaos. If you're the bottleneck in your business or in your own life, I'll show you how to fix it. Simple, tactical, and one layer deep every time. Let's go. Visit libbyd.com and check out our podcast today.
It's a much easier, faster way to extract data from this place, do something with that data, push it into a system, but no longer is it as rigid with so many decision trees, as less decision tree needs. So it's reduced the burden on the person. What is happening is a new application layer to make RPA and language models work better together. Obviously, if you're a legacy system of 10, 15 years, you've gone through many different iterations of thinking, and now this has come along and said, well, it's very frustrating because everything we've just been doing is kind of useful, but not that useful.
Yeah.
So I think there's a displacement there. But to be honest, I think it's super early days for the idea of RPA being something that's everywhere for most organizations. Like super early. Because there's a great analogy. It's more of a product marketing kind of idea and product thing. Is if you give someone a box of Lego, they go, what do I build? Now, if you give someone the Lego Star Wars pack, they know exactly what to build. And they go, I love Lego. That's really helpful.
Right.
And that is the process that the market is now going through. Is, okay, we've got this, really powerful thing. How do we make this easy for most people to consume?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I will tell you that I just started like this boot camp to really, learn by doing and building my own agentic workflow for myself. And already just with the first couple sessions, I'm already really excited at what it can do for just even for me as a solopreneur, whether it's my podcast, workflow, or my sales marketing outreach, workflow and things like that. And so, I mean, I'm excited for organizations that are ready to embrace, platforms like Mindset, because I just think it's eye opening, and I don't think people necessarily appreciate. I guess I'm a process guy at heart, even though I'm a technologist. I started my career doing process, re-engineering work and redesigning workflows and stuff like that. And so I don't think people fully appreciate just how much value you can get out of this. And it's not just like cost savings. It's like even just the mental drain that some of these steps take. I don't think people are fully appreciating how much time they could be saving because they're so just used to this is how things are done. And I feel like there's like this awakening coming when people see, probably you probably get that when people see your demo.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I guess my view is with that every single SaaS application will have what you're describing built in. Every single one of them, almost every single one of them. The new interface is a conversation, and the thing that sits behind the conversation is out the box built for workflows that do things for me. And in many ways, and so for many people, you're probably on the innovator end who are let me build and get stuck in. Many people, I'd say 80% of people will not want to go near that until it's ready. It's the difference of someone that in the 70s, 80s of people who build their own computer and, from a pack versus someone that waits for the Mac to come and it's beautiful. But I certainly think for those people who don't want to touch that, it'll be in almost every SaaS application. And really, I think could even eliminate the need for most SaaS. A good example is so computer use. If you saw Claude's new announcement, so computer use where that takes, for those who are listening, haven't seen that, using vision and stuff like that, it's able to perform actions across your computer for you. It helps you build things, do whatever. The really powerful thing there is it actually built code to build a website. And then you say, no, I don't want it like that. Do it like this using your laptop or PC. So the reason that's so interesting, if you abstract that away from the use case of build me this thing, so currently you have a CRM. That CRM has to be built over many, many, many years. That's very complex. And technology is built on this. Now, in theory, all you really need is to say, here's the data from a deal, and it can just build you the UI you need, and it's just stored in a database that's accessible. Organizations have literally been putting their data together in a way that's accessible for 10 years. It's a CIO role. Now AI can just build custom UI on the fly for when it's needed. So suddenly this idea of process and experience of people could even eliminate much of the complex SaaS that we're used to. And it seems like a big thing, but I mean, if you abstract away and go, how should a user feel and experience technology? We don't care about UI and learning how to use something. We just, Apple got it right. Simple.
Right. That's a really thought-provoking and disruptive thought, right? Because these platforms are trying to add more and more to these platforms, and for buyers, for CIOs, for CTOs, or even, in your case, maybe it's a chief learning officer or CHRO or something like that. But for any leader who's involved in technology, purchasing decisions and uses the technology themselves, you have to call into question why you need all these things. Now, as you mentioned, I mean, we're still very early days in a lot of this, but in theory, you have all this. I don't want to use the term fine tuning because I know that means something different in generative AI terms, but you have such flexibility in how you design all of this. That's not rules based. That's not rigid. That doesn't have to follow normal, software development cycles necessarily. And so this is disruptive. I agree to just the entire sort of software, SaaS market.
So when TikTok and platforms like that came around, the mainstream big media, so big media wasn't replaced by another big media. It was replaced by thousands of small media. So creators or small media publishers now. I'm not trying to predict the end of SaaS, but I'm saying it is an enterprise organization spends many millions of dollars on huge amounts of overhead tax of time and effort and stress, gluing together different systems to perform many things that should be quite, in many ways, basic and simple. But actually at the core of it, data is the new important asset. So as long as the data is in check over time, there's no reason you can't start to explore those types of things. And I mean, it's really difficult to obviously abstract ourselves away from this world of something that we have a framework for. But if there is a SaaS that enabled you to build SaaS like that on the fly using data, who knows? Could very well be a new type of SaaS model, because agents are a new form of SaaS. That's the best way to think about an AI agent. It's just a SaaS application now.
Right. Yeah, and I've heard people use this term. I don't know if it's going to catch on, but like instead of software as a service, but service as software.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you think about it?
Yeah, it's not a bad description. So it's probably quite apt.
Yeah. In terms of the customization, does the average user do they get to customize their own agent for learning, or how does that work?
It's a really good question at the moment. So we've got essentially, let's call it another module, another part of the product that we've been working through, which allows anyone to build their own in just a few steps, very simple. The workflow part is something that's kind of becomes more complex, but not too complex, especially in the context of learning. But most use cases, actually, people don't want to do that. People actually want to build. I've got massive of expertise and content and information on, let's do something very generic and simple, but leadership principles or leadership or whatever it might be. They want to create an agent that acts like a coach and give it to users and give access to users for that. So that's what we work with LMSs, we work with different organizations across that spectrum who provide that to enterprise organizations. Most of those use cases is the administrator, the team leader who gives it to their employees and their learners versus learners building it on the fly like a GPT. Mainly because of it's about verified knowledge and information.
Right.
That's actually one of the core parts. It's almost like a cross between knowledge management and learning management, if you know what I mean.
Okay, sure.
Although it can help, the knowledge management part is an important part of that piece to make something helpful, because you don't want to deliver training to people on random information. You need it to be quite verified and expertise.
Yeah, it's consistent as well, right?
Yeah.
And make sure everyone's getting the same information. That could be a disaster if that gets too far out of hand. One of the things that's come up recently, so one of the areas that I focus on is responsible AI, and I tell people that when it comes to responsible AI, we're all responsible in some fashion. So I know we haven't seen a lot of organizations put together required like AI literacy training or anything like that yet, but one of the things, as I try to keep tabs on like legislation and things like that around the world, and how people are thinking about it, governance and ethics and fairness, there have been some folks that I follow that are questioning whether agentic workflows kind of break some of this or make it more difficult to actually have the traceability or observability of whether there's bias in any of the data. I was just curious what you think about that, especially as in your chief product officer role, and how you're designing and building some of these things, just how you think about that.
Is it about bias, audibility, and understanding of what data is passing through these multiple steps of a workflow?
Do you lose track of the data and the algorithm, and how do you know that the algorithm from one, working in one agent passed the right, I guess fair information to the next agent or whatever? This is just sort of an open-ended question, however you want to interpret it.
Hey, I'm Katie Van Horn.
And I'm Jackie Clayton.
We're your hosts of the Inclusive AF podcast, where we take on DEI, leadership, and HR without all the corporate fluff.
That's right. We've got decades of experience, a lot of opinions, and zero tolerance for performative anything.
Every week, we dig into what it really takes to build inclusive workplaces with honesty, strategy, and a few side eyes.
We'll talk about the tough stuff, power dynamics, privilege, what's broken in the system, and how we can all do better.
And don't worry, it's not all heavy. We bring receipts, laughs, and real talk from people actually doing the work.
Think of it as your weekly dose of truth, tips, and a little tea to help you lead with intention and show up for your people.
So if you're ready to push past the buzzwords and get into the actual work of inclusion,
you're in the right place. So subscribe to the Inclusive AF podcast.
New episodes drop every week.
Catch us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll be here breaking it down one inclusive convo at a time.
It's a tough question. I mean, that particular example is quite a painful one, I guess, because that's one of the big areas of, I guess, even I'm quite worried about that type of area. From a data in perspective, you should be able to understand what data is actually inside the knowledge that you're giving access to. So, I mean, for example, we have clients who ingest, say, 100,000 pieces of content, huge amounts of information and data, so much that a mere human would never comprehend what's inside that stuff. So we had to build technology and to surface, I guess, what we have is a knowledge graph. So we use multiple different databases to map concepts, people, and information, and the interconnected nature of that per client. So each client has their own knowledge graph. And then, therefore, we can surface the actual data inside the content that's ingested. So you can, from our system, you integrate into your SharePoint on AWS bucket, wherever it might be. And we actually surface all the unexpected potential concepts and pieces of data inside it. So this is expected, unexpected, this is what's covering. So we use different AI to summarize all the data inside it, present that. And then equally a system for being able to go through and see, okay, where's the data coming from? So I was using an example as part of a demo, actually. In Matthew Said's book, there's lots of mention about the CIA, and this agent is supposed to be helping people with communication, let's say, or agents are supposed to help with this piece of thing.
Mm.
But why is the CIA in there? That's a weird concept, but actually it's a part of a book that's on leadership by Matthew Said. Okay. Anyway, but we can then trace exactly where that piece of data came from, like the exact segments or chapters of a piece of content, information, knowledge, whatever it might be that's come from, and you can snip that out. So that's a really important part, is the data, the garbage in, garbage out, bias in, bias out. So that source, you need to be able to understand that. People panic about the quality of their data, what's inside it. If you have a system that like ours does, is should be able to access and understand what's inside it straight away when you ingest it, before turning on access to any agentic kind of workflow. So as soon as you switch that on, data flows, you run a process. That's where the problem is.
That's your eval process?
That's in terms of data in, yeah. Audibility throughout the process is also really important. Like you should be able to track every single question, every single thing, every single interaction, and all the data that's been processed. So, I mean, any system that's quite robust should have audibility built in. Should be simple audibility.
Agree. Awesome.
At scale becomes quite weird and scary, I guess, because in a multi-agent system with, say, 50 agents, 60 agents, 100 agents, 3,000, 10,000, a million, very soon there will be more agents than people. I can guarantee that. And kind of a spider web of interactions and engagements.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Yeah. And I don't know, I guess I'm cautiously optimistic that those types of things will scale well. But, I think as long as you have the right mechanisms in place and you've got humans in the right spots in the loop or multiple loops, or I'm not even sure what that's going to look like. But I think that's what makes people nervous, right? When you give these agents agency and autonomy, like what are the ramifications of that? But I like your approach in terms of the thoroughness of looking at it and the observability of all of that.
Yeah, I'm more concerned at, say, an education system when you apply for school in an area that also has access to other application data, insurance, location, other forms of data based on social media activity or other forms of activity. Because that's where this will start to go, is just like people buy social media data to inform I think it was Netflix that did a almost $1 billion partnership with Meta to take data to inform their models for recommendations. When we get to that level, when AI agents are at a bit more scale, suddenly you have an application that you interacted with and you were dating a person. It could be as simple as dating someone from an area that was deemed dangerous by an AI system, and suddenly you apply for a school or a health care system and you're rejected. That's where I'm actually, in many ways, more concerned about, in almost always in the immediate term over the next 5 years, because that will happen. Those are painful circumstances that people will actually have to go through. And in many ways, you can try and stop it at source. You could try and stop innovation. But the big thing is, I think, as long as we don't replace every interaction with an organization or a business with more AI agents that make it very difficult for a human to say, look, what's happening to me here? I'm being unfairly treated. And that's that ability for a human to contact another human and say, please help fix this. I've been rejected from my school application because I interacted with the person in somewhere that was deemed unsafe, which is a ridiculous thing, but will happen. I think that's going to be a really important practice and law that will have to be brought in.
Yeah. I think you just scared the shit out of a lot of people. But I don't think that's far-fetched at all. I mean, this is why we have these controls. This is why we need to balance responsibility with innovation. And we've got to just mitigate, some of these risks. We can't eliminate them, but you're absolutely right. I mean, we see hints of this in anytime you're a victim of identity theft. Like all of a sudden, that data was linked to your credit report and all these things, and now you can't get a car, a house, you can't apply for a college loan, you can't do all these things, and so that's why we lock down medical records and personally identifiable information, and that's why privacy and cybersecurity are part of responsible AI. So yeah, no, I'm glad you brought those things up.
No, I think the most irresponsible thing is to try and hold back, because actually in many ways, if OpenAI or another provider suddenly came out with what they defined as super intelligence, the world just could collapse. There's no adjustment. There's no small test that creates a huge, horrible crisis but affects only a small group of people in the grand scheme of things of billions of people on Earth. So I think the most irresponsible thing to do is not do, actually. We need to go through the pain and realize what's real, what's not.
Yep, agree. You're sort of at the forefront of a lot of this. I mean, is there anything that you're particularly, fond of or scared of with the latest, AI advancements?
I'm really interested in the journey of AI agents from a typical application. So let's say a ChatGPT or whatever system you are interacting with these things in, to coming outside of our screen and into our lives more. That's something that I'm really, I find very interesting. I think a good example, Elon Musk accidentally bought Twitter for whatever reasons, but actually turned out fantastic data source. And I think that data source will start to be brought into Teslas, which will be used increasingly so. So I'm interested in how AI agents as a concept of someone or something that understands you and follows you everywhere suddenly starts to enter every part of your life. And I'm both worried and excited by that. So something I'm looking forward to in the future. I mean, from a learning perspective, we talk about an AI coach.
Yeah.
An AI coach that can recommend information, understand you. Yeah, cool. We're well past all that sort of stuff. But one about if you imagine a role play and you go, Bob, you expressed interest in becoming better at X. Are you okay if I just follow you around for X period of time? You'll be notified, and I'm just going to just watch you as a friend. because of vision or other type of capabilities, can actually go and identify all the areas that you can improve on based on a methodology.
Yeah.
An action plan that feeds into a separate system in a learning management system or content, and curates a journey for you to improve. And you choose its personality and how it knows you and what it's going to help you with. And that there is what I look at now, going, how do we take that next big leap in that area?
Yeah, I think we can all think of many, of our own real life scenarios where that would be extremely valuable, as long as it's, you understand the data's, safe, and we've got the right, parameters around that. But that's where I'd like to see us go, like solving some of these everyday challenges that maybe people have just, like I said before, just accepted as reality. This is life, but it actually doesn't have to be that way. And that's why we've got to move forward, in a positive direction, because people will get a ton of benefit. So awesome. Well, Jack, this has been really, really intriguing conversation. I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I think there's a lot for our listeners to
Thank you.
to take away from this. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Excellent. Thanks again, Jack. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.